Hey there, I'm Michael Demond, and I'm introducing the world to starbeam.one. This session is Beware Blockchain. Woo! Let's begin. Overview of the topics I'll be discussing in this session. It's a bit of a longer one here. To start, you'll see a lot of refrains out there, a couple of really common refrains in cryptocurrency conversations, and they are have fun being poor and do the research. And I can only assume they're pulling from this quote from Benjamin Franklin. That was Benjamin Franklin, right? Yeah, he says a lot of things. He gets a lot of quotes. And so my response to that and my attitude around that is found in this QR code. It's sort of a more money, more problems, less money, less problems kind of thing. Try it out sometime. Surprising to admit, but I have been doing the research here for almost half a decade, 4.5 years. So the obvious question here is, am I anti-blockchain? And the short answer is no. I'm really neither for or against it. And if you had a spectrum here of Stephen Deal on one side, Stephen Deal is the cryptocurrency Twitter critic, the de facto critic on Twitter, and he would be on the one side representing zero, and on the other side you had Super Freaky Face Melt Monkey. And Super Freaky Face Melt Monkey is sort of the icon of what the NFT space is to me. And if you are going to buy a Super Freaky Face Melt Monkey, you are a 10. You are really bought into the program. I'm in the middle. I sort of oscillate between a 4.5 and a 5.5, depending on the discussion of the day and basically the attitude of the people that are having that discussion. Moving on to some other points here, and I realize that its real name is not Super Freaky Face Melt Monkey. It's just an affectionate nickname that I've given it. And I used to be really big into Garbage Pail Kids, and this is what it reminds me of. But you know, when I was in it, I loved them, and other people hated it. Now it's sort of like on the flip side. Although I really don't hate NFTs, but I kind of get the sense that I'm not the only person making nicknames, sort of thing. And if it makes you feel any better, I am not sure if that's how you pronounce Stephen Deal's last name. I kind of did a Google search, and that's what it told me. So I might have butchered both ends of the spectrum there. So equal opportunity sort of thing, right? So kind of moving on to these points. If it wasn't for the blockchain, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. And there's a sense of appreciation for that, right? And I also feel that the blockchain is a great source of inspiration, you know, and I think you find a lot of people trying to make money from it, but there's a lot to appreciate about it, I think, at the end of the day, even though it is inefficient and can stand to improve. Also know that I'm a free market guy, and I put that in quotes because you are only as free as the government will allow you to be, right? Our government, the US government, is predicated on checks and balances. We have that those three branches of government that do keep power in check. So it is in our DNA, I think, to check power. And, you know, I'm a legal junkie a bit, and I do keep up with the news, and I see topics such as civil asset forfeiture. And this is kind of what happens, right? We, you know, have these issues of power with the government. So things like the blockchain become a good idea, right? And, you know, I don't really have an opinion that I wish to express with civil asset forfeiture either way, but I do know that our three branches of government do a pretty good job. And I think over time you will see our judicial system kick in here with that topic, and we'll find the right answer. So getting into some points here is that, you know, if you're going to use cryptocurrency, you're going to need a wallet, and that usually involves an install, whether on the OS or in the browser. And you might have your friends want to support you and install it, but friends of friends or friends of friends of friends, etc., might have a problem with that. And that's what you're seeing with the adoption, is people are running into that hesitation. You know, it's something that you're going to be putting on your machine, and that becomes a bloat factor maybe, or maybe even a security factor. So people have a problem with that. And I have experience with this with a technology called Silverlight, which is kind of a sore topic for me, but I have a QR code there that goes into more detail. Efficiency. So you hear a lot about environmental impact, and while that may be a concern, what I focus on is the efficiency of the blockchain, which is leading to that environmental impact. And the reason why, you know, that's happening is from how it's going about solving these transactions. And, you know, even then, what we see is that there's a cap, there's a limit to how many transactions per second you can do for each blockchain. And I'm using an example here for a fast one. Right now, Ethereum's like 40 to 100 transactions per second, depending on how you measure that. But let's just say that we have a blockchain that has a cap of 10,000 transactions per second. Well, if you have 100 smart contracts on that blockchain and they're each doing 100 transactions per second, you met your limit, right? So if I introduce another smart contract on that blockchain and that's already hitting that limit, well, things are going to get pretty slow pretty quickly. We haven't really reached that yet, but as people adopt, that becomes more of a concern. Additionally, conversely, what I look at is centralized equivalent, right? So we have Azure SQL Server. I've got a QR code there for more details. 75,000 transactions per second dedicated to one application. And that's like more my style. Speaking of Azure SQL Server, it's nice to see someone in that group thinking like me and wanting to take the cool decentralized components and bring them to centralized technologies. And that's what you see here with that QR code. And I'm using in starbeam.one. So level 2 is something that you hear to sort of increase the output or the number of transactions that a blockchain can do. And, it's just another level of complexity that you've added, and also research that you need to do, and then everyone else that you recommend that uses this to do. And so, it's just another layer to consider when you're asking people, because they're going to assume all the risk that goes along with that. Proof of stake, right? So shout out to David V. You know who you are. He's a lot like me, an acronym junkie. And when you have an acronym, the first thing you do is you hop on Urban Dictionary to make sure it checks out. I've got a QR code that kind of drives home that point. Notice that I'm above it and not below it. It might seem like a nit, but with Ethereum, you already have this gas theme going on. So either it is a theme or it's a joke, and either way, it doesn't seem too auspicious for you, sort of thing. But more importantly, you're moving away from what made you so cool, the mining, right? The mining made you really cool. It's a really neat thing, and it seems like you would be able to improve that rather than pivot to something completely different. And you're not only moving away from that, but you're moving into something that seems like traditional banking, right? And so I know that it's decentralized, but still it doesn't sit well with me. And that kind of brings up a good point, right? Like, what if you have this group of people that like this proof of stake, but now you also have this group of people that like that mining, right? So now you got these two groups, and what happens when they each want to go their own way? Well, what happens is a very bad thing. It's known as the fork, and it's already happened with Ethereum, and you can see that in the top QR code there. And what happens is everything gets duplicated. So all these unique assets that you have on one chain gets duplicated in another, and then it's no longer quite so unique, right? And this is such a risk that it's actually mentioned in Coinbase filings, and that's what that second QR code is. Become your own bank. You hear this a lot with cryptocurrency. Well, there's a downside to that, right? You become your own bank, you become your own target as well, and that's what that QR code goes to for more information. Price is just a number, and this is a QR code there for a really well written article that was recently published that kind of goes into more detail. With Wall Street, you've got something that's tied to that number of that stock that you're trading, right? And in the last quarter, it made this much money, so if the price dumps, then, well, I've got that to rely on. Coins, there's nothing like that. It's just a number of what one person says and then what the counterparty says, and then there's even gambling on if that's going to go down or up. It's just be aware, it's just a number. Saving the best for last here, your private key is just a really large number. And this is a security feature for better or for worse. That means if someone guesses that number, they get access to your wallet. And this is a feature that I feel is not really all that well known. There is a QR code at the top that'll take you to a site where you can browse every key known to Bitcoin and Ethereum. But what gets my interest is this random generation. You can randomly select a page. And I wonder what happens when someone formalizes that and creates a network where that's all it does, is it just randomly guesses keys to see if value is stored there. Because do not underestimate the random number, right? In my mind, the random number is random, and its propensity to just guess a key that might have value should not be understated. Finally, it's supposed to be astronomically impossible to guess a key because there's just so many numbers. But there's a Reddit discussion there at the bottom QR code that takes you to a discussion that shows that someone's already done this. Okay, that does it. That wraps up this session and all the primary sessions of Starbeam One. Kind of a longer session here. We've got about 5 years worth of research into it, but want to make sure I got my key points down. But now we can move on to the addendum, starting with my favorite topic. See you there.